Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. This is Ramon, your boy, coming to you from this place where I actually have it. It's fully complete now, technically. I guess there's no overhead light here, but you can probably see I do have blinds now, so I can, fully feel like I have a little privacy in my library, personal library slash office, which, believe it or not, is pretty small. But I personally, yeah, I'm pretty thankful this year. First of all, probably like you, that we can still speak to each other and express our opinions in this country without having to worry about being censored totally. Now, of course, that's under threat, but we might as well do it while we still can. Second of all, I'm thankful for my dad for helping me get this place together. Me and my dad, we don't always cooperate on things, but he was here today, and I actually got a lot of work done here. The place doesn't look as much of a dump as it usually does. So, all in all, it's been a good day. It's been a good Thanksgiving. I fell asleep last night. I didn't get to go on some of the streams that I usually do, where I call in or comment or chat, because I came home from work and I zonked out completely. Just fell asleep, woke up at about 1:30, and then spent the rest of the night uh, writing a response to somebody, which we're going to get to, and listening to Hall and Oates, which I guess you can judge me for that. But remember, it's Thanksgiving. So, what we're going to be talking about today? Well, there's a few topics that I think are worth talking about. And, there's everybody wants to talk about the LeVar Ball feud, which I think LeVar Ball and Donald Trump, which I think is pretty much, it's a joke. Everybody knows it's a joke. Catherine Hooray says Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Catherine, for being the one person who's joining me. Where are you joining me from, if I might ask? Just let me know what state you're from, if you don't want to be too specific. I know some people, they don't want to talk about where they live, but yeah, we have a lot to be thankful for in this country. We also have a little bit, like, plenty of things to be dissatisfied about. The thing with the Trump and that hunting permit, the permitting people to bring back trophies from Africa. I wasn't happy about it. I'm sure many of you who may have voted for him weren't happy about it either. But we still have to be thankful that we don't have this disgusting harpy as our president. Think about it. This is a woman, every few years, in order to raise funds, she'll write another book, and it's just more work for me, which I don't mind doing. But give me a break. I mean, so many people already write shit about you. Yeah, you might as well just take like a marker and write some margin notes about what people get wrong about you, instead of making up lies. And that's what Hillary Clinton does. But before I get to Hillary Clinton, Catherine is from Long Island. How about go Islanders? Yeah, I've always hated the Rangers, so she's sliming it. And I don't know why it's. By the way, once in a while, you guys will post a comment, and Google will withhold it. And it's not. I mean, she puts this comment: she's slimy and disgusting. I mean, why would Google automatically hold it? I just showed it, so it's more than likely I will show your messages. By the way. So yeah, go Islanders, Catherine. I know you guys haven't had a great team for a long time, but maybe this will be the year. And I am probably not going to get to watch all of my Dallas Cowboys today, but there's other things to do, and I have been doing them. And I'm going to go see my sister and my nephew and my niece. And I hope all of you enjoy some of your day, because it's very different. It's very difficult for some people to get a good 2 or 3 hours in with their relatives without exploding and just getting into an argument. So in light of that, let me encourage you to avail yourselves of all the real resources I have for example, I might put this in the flask. I have some, or even, yeah, I have the fun size, okay, the Jim Beam, and I have this tequila. That's how, you know, you build a calm and serene family with various chemical aids. So thanks everybody for joining me. I know it must be a busy day if you're in the United States. If you're in one of those other countries that are not the United States, I guess you don't give a shit. But you know, happy Thanksgiving to you too. And we're going to talk about, first of all, coming to that, Obamacare. Obamacare was one of the reasons that I started this channel. And for me, I've talked about my red pill moment in terms of, yeah, I got a comment for Larry, which I'm going to read in a second. But Obamacare was, for me, was the policy point where I started to see that people really need to read the fine print, read what's going on, not just in terms of the law, not just in terms of marketing materials, but in terms of the media. Obamacare is the greatest domestic policy deception of my lifetime. There are other ones. The Patriot Act was pretty awful, but people were complaining about the Patriot Act at the time justifiably. Obamacare, let me tell you something. Yeah, yes, conservatives did object to it, but a lot of them didn't know why they objected to it, and a lot of them were simply against it because they were like, I'm against government health care. I don't give a fuck. I ain't going to be paying no bureaucrat over in D.C. to run my health care. Well, that's not exactly what Obamacare was. Obamacare, in fact, was a betrayal not just of conservative citizens or kind of a thumb in the eye of them, but of progressive citizens as well. And for those people that might be thinking, if you're on the Democratic side of the fence, a progressive or a liberal, if you think that defending Obamacare is upholding the agenda of or upholding the legacy of liberal America and preserving the rights and freedoms of liberals as they see it, then you don't know what the fuck the law does. Obamacare is corporate welfare. And if you look in the media, whenever you see, and I check in at least once a week, what's going on. I don't have as much time as I used to comment on it. I used to write a lot of material on Obamacare. I don't get to do it anymore, which is why I'm trying to develop this long-term project relating to it, which I'm not going to talk about yet. You'll see it. If you're excited about it, if you're a big Obamacare follower, it's not a sexy topic, but I am developing a project that I think many of you should be interested in. Many of you should be interested in. So every week I check what's going on with Obamacare news, because people now think that by saving Obamacare, you're saving the health care of Americans. Well, all you're doing is you're preserving a system of price fixing that is unhealthy. It has to be sustained through continuous corporate blood infusions or money infusions from the Treasury. Sorry, not corporate, but from the Treasury, in order to prop up and bail out these plans and make them somewhat affordable. That's how you're able to do the subsidies. So effectively, even if you don't buy Obamacare, you're paying for it. And that's one of the reasons that I'm in favor of dismantling the plan any way possible. Now, will the GOP replacement plans work? I don't know. And to be honest with you, I'm not satisfied with those either. And that's why I'm trying to find an alternative system that would be better. And I think that there are a few. The Paul plan, for example. I know I do a lot of cheerleading for Rand Paul. Well, believe me, I think it's much better. Larry Gerke says, yo, bold like a leopard. Happy holiday, bro. Cher and I are fixing to go out to dinner, but wanted to say happy Thanksgiving to you and the other chatters. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to you, Larry, too. I haven't heard from you for a while, but I understand I've had like a few weird hours. So why am I bringing up today? So you go to Baltimore Sun. The Baltimore Sun ran this article, and I'll show it to you. Hold on. I have it on the link at the bottom of in the description. So they said Republicans don't understand that Americans depend on Obamacare. This is an utter falsehood. So it says the grand old party remains hung up, the GOP, hung up on the false belief that most Americans don't want Obamacare, despite all evidence to the contrary. Repeated efforts to repeal and replace it having failed, the GOP now wants to include in the new Senate tax reform bill the elimination of the individual mandate requiring purchasing of health care insurance or payment of a fine. Doing so would drive a stake into the heart of President Barack Obama's Affordable Care Act, leaving an estimated 13 million Americans without coverage and creating a major crisis in the insurance market. According to Senate Minority Leader Charles Schumer, speaking for the Democrats, we don't need to trade it for a tax bill, and we won't. The Congressional Budget Office's estimate of the fallout of the Senate Finance Committee's latest plan to kill Obamacare confirms again the public's continued fear of losing the coverage, no matter how much the Republican legislators insist Americans hate Obamacare. A prominent GOP senator, Susan Collins of Maine, I think that they believe that just because they're in the Senate and they're a Republican, it means that they're prominent. Susan Collins is known for nothing besides being basically the most liberal Republican in the Senate. One of three Republicans who blocked ACA repeal in the last Senate vote has already said getting rid of the individual mandate only complicates the situation, in quotes. Another of the three, Senator John McCain of Arizona, has said he will be looking at the notion, and the House version of the tax bill does not include the repeal. The fact is that the reigning Republican strategists are so convinced that killing Obamacare will be a political winner for them that they have they have failed to grasp that for millions of Americans it has become a vital part of their social safety net and their families. The CBO, in its estimate of the toll, so what do they do here? They use the Congressional Budget Office. Now, the Congressional Budget Office, originally, they were the key cheerleaders for Obamacare. They were, so I'm going to go back in time, okay? You won't be able to see me. CBO estimate. Okay, this is from the Weekly Standard. It's a newspaper that I'm not particularly fond of. It's one of those never Trumper ones, but this was, in any case, before the Trump era. So don't take anytime I use a source, don't take it as an endorsement of the source for everything. But it says the CBO misses its Obamacare projection by 24 million people. 3 years ago on the eve of Obama, so this was in 2016, March 28th, 2016, before the election. 3 years ago on the eve of Obamacare's implementation, the Congressional Budget Office projected that President Obama's centerpiece legislation would result in an average of 201 million people having private health insurance in any given month of 2016. Now that 2016 is here, the CBO says that just 177 million people on average who have private health insurance in any given month of this year, a shortfall of 24 million people. So, in other words, that would be probably like a 16% inaccuracy. So think about it. They were 16% off. Indeed, based on the CBO's own numbers, it seems possible that Obamacare has actually reduced the number of people with private health insurance. In 2013, the CBO projected that without Obamacare, 186 people would be covered by private health insurance in 2016, 160 million on employer-based plans, 26 million on individually purchased plans. The CBO now says that with Obamacare, 177 million people will be covered by private health insurance in 2016. So 155 million on employer-based plans, 12 million on plans through the Obamacare's government-run exchanges, and 9 million on other individually purchased plans, plus a rounding error of 1 million. In other words, it would appear that a net $9 million have lost their private health plans thanks to Obamacare, with a net 5 million people having lost employer-based plans and a net 4 million people having lost individually purchased plans. None of this is to say that fewer people have quote-unquote coverage under Obamacare. It's just not private coverage. So we're always talking about, remember here, okay, what's the important thing about Obamacare public statements. The issue that I have with Obamacare is that originally, you can go back, look at the tape. I'll pull it. I'll put it in the description later. President Obama claimed during his election in 2008, his election campaign, that he could reduce premiums at $2,500 per family per year. Okay, he claimed that. Now, understandably, what came out of his healthcare negotiations was probably not what he imagined. But he made that campaign promise, $2,500 per family per year. Okay, and how come nobody holds him to that standard, President Obama? It's been 8 years, okay? And for people to forget that and to not hold him to that standard, I think is obscene. And if President Trump fails to repeal Obamacare by the end of his term, whether it's in 3 years or whether it's in 7 years, they should complain about him too. And I think that he will have been a failure, in my opinion, unfortunately. And you know, if somebody comes back and pulls the tape in 7 years, and he hasn't repealed Obamacare, you know, what am I supposed to say? It'll be hard for me to call him a success. Obamacare is a fucking failure. And for people that try to say, oh, so many people depend on it, was the wrong side, sorry. They're saying that 13 million Americans would lose their coverage. Well, 13 million Americans, that's not that big of a jump since 2016. And what they are covering up is the fact that they are trying to hold hostage American healthcare policy based on the meager failed achievements of a piece of legislation that never succeeded to begin with. Remember all the lies of Obamacare, okay? Never, ever forget that they promised all this shit, that if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your plan, you can keep your plan. They promised that healthcare premiums would go down. They promised it would go down. They didn't say that it wouldn't increase at the same rate. They said it would go down. So if anybody ever comes to you and says, well, people depend on Obamacare, you say that's not the fucking point. The point is that they promised X, Y, and Z, and they delivered KLM and OP. That's what we got. Nothing. We didn't get shit from Obamacare. You know who got something from Obamacare? Health insurance companies that participated in it and got bailouts from the cost share reductions that Congress did not authorize the government to give. That's it. Okay? If anybody ever argues with you about Obamacare being a policy that is necessary, fuck that. It's not about necessity. It's about results. It's about whether it's made healthcare more affordable to Americans. All it does is it gives money to health insurance companies to sell people more expensive health insurance in the guise of less expensive health insurance by heavily subsidizing it. See the chat. Anybody have some comments? Gabriel Judas Gofi Sufeb. That must be some. I'm sorry, but it just sounds like it's a joke name. So, please, I don't know. It says, "Enjoy your work. Please keep it up." Obama was the mainstream media golden boy, and Hillary not becoming president was a very lucky escape for the world, let alone America. Well, I don't think we've escaped yet. I think we still have a lot of issues, and this is why I will never shut the fuck up about Obamacare until it is dead, and also until we've had something else to rely on. And I'm not talking about repealing and replacing it with something that's the same shit. I'm talking about finding creative solutions, talking to health professionals. I know some health professionals that I've talked to. That for me is a priority. I don't give a fuck whether it's good for Donald Trump or not. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. Obamacare is a step toward communism, in my opinion. I'd have to disagree. I'd say that yes, there are some issues of price fixing there, which means it's government intervention. It's not quite communism. There are some credible theories, though, which, you know, maybe you'll agree with me on this. The theory is that Obamacare was set up as some sort of scheme that would collapse of its own ill-conceived structure such that people would start to say, well, maybe health insurance that's privately sold doesn't work in any case, so we'll go to government publicly owned medicine. So that's the theory. That's the theory of why they went towards Obamacare, so that they could discredit the whole model of publicly sold insurance, because they can say, oh, this is sold by the private health insurance companies, and it failed. We gave it a try, guys. Now let's go for universal health care. Well, they don't throw in the problem of why it failed. Let me go back to the article. So the CBO, in its estimate on the total of repealing individual mandate, also calculated the cost of insurance in the Obamacare exchanges would go up about 10% under the change, and imperil a compromise deal worked out between Republican Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee and Democratic Senator Patty Murray of Washington to shore up the market. Ms. Murray, pointing to the strong Democratic victories in the recent off-year elections in Virginia, New Jersey, and other states, observed that the elections clearly showed that the American people are paying attention and they don't want their health care taken away. I don't think the Republicans are listening. Unfortunately, hostility to the whole concept of the social safety net has been a characteristic of many legislators in the grand old party, and was built into their political DNA going all the way back to the New Deal days of Franklin D. Roosevelt and Harry Truman. I think if Harry Truman saw Obamacare, he probably would have nuked Washington, D.C., okay? He would have driven to Missouri in his own car and nuked Washington, D.C., because he would have realized that even as a Democrat of that era, this is fucking retarded, okay? From the start, they relentlessly played the dreaded socialism card against the Democrats, who regularly and successfully sold the safety net agenda to millions of poor and middle-class voters. The Democrats built an electoral powerhouse through the 1930s and 1940s and beyond. Republican advocates of repealing the individual mandate, the glue that has held Obamacare together for 7 years, say it would free up $338 billion over the next decade to finance the proposed Trump tax cuts, including a $2,000 per child tax credit for middle-income Americans. So there's only 3 paragraphs left, so don't worry if you're getting bored. The individual taxpayer cuts would expire as early as 2023 in the House bill and 2026 in the Senate version, but corporate taxes would drop from 35% to 20% and would be permanent. Among the beneficiaries would be a New York real estate tycoon named Donald J. Trump and his heirs. The Republican congressional strategists hope to accomplish 2 objectives by twinning the Obama individual mandate repeal with the deep corporate tax cuts. But again, Senate Democrats will stand in the way, and a few Senate Republicans may also do so, either disagreeing on principle or out of growing resistance to the president they increasingly can't tolerate. In sum, the old partisan argument goes on, with Republicans insisting that American businesses need their taxes cut and Democrats pleading that it not come at the cost of the nation's social safety net. Now, here's a few. Now, let me just read these comments for a second. We won't have healthcare until we allow natural medicine to play a major role. Western medicine is incredibly powerful and causes major illness that, when relied upon as a sole means of treatment. Well, Catherine, yeah, you have. I think that there's something to be said about holistic medicine. I won't say I believe in all of it, but yeah, I've heard, for example, with allergies, it's a lot of the pharmaceutical alternatives aren't really the answer. It's actually, I know people who have dealt with it in a more holistic way. Gabriel Judas, this is a real. I mean, there has to be a story behind this name. President Trump said he will now let Obamacare implode. Do you think this will happen before he can repeal it? Obamacare will implode no matter what you do. And I'll tell you what's the alternative to implosion. If you remove all these constraints, like you said, with removing the individual mandate and repealing, for example, or removing the state lines, well, Obamacare may end up just being a more open market model. It could eventually dissolve into a more open market model, and we won't even see. It'll cease to be Obamacare as we know it. So there's two options, in my opinion. The first option is that the federal government allows Obamacare to continue as it is. Okay? And if it does do that, Obamacare will eventually become so unaffordable that most of these Americans that, the 13 million people or whatever that are currently under Obamacare, a lot of them will probably opt for Medicaid, or they will move on to plans that are off Obamacare if they become more affordable than Obamacare itself. Um, there's a number of different options that could happen. One of the lies that was in the article, and I hope you guys noticed it if you've been following my channel for a while. If you haven't, then this may be news to you. They try to say that Obamacare is part of the social safety net for the poor and the middle class. What they don't mention is that Obamacare isn't meant for the poor at all. At all. In fact, Obamacare, to some extent, helped make Medicaid more accessible for the middle class and was never accessible for the poor. Poor Americans that qualify for Medicaid or Medicare or one of the other, or let's say VA benefits, or the Indian healthcare system, which is, those are a little more niche oriented. They don't serve the general public. They will never buy, government subsidized healthcare, and they can get it for free or for an even like a much more a much more subsidized price than Obamacare. So it has nothing to do with helping the poor. What Obama did was that he succeeded in deceiving a lot of poor Americans and Black Americans into thinking that Obamacare did benefit the poor. It has nothing to do with the poor. Obamacare, if it did anything, it enabled people with pre-existing conditions to find healthcare plans at subsidized rates. Okay, whereas before they may have been denied coverage entirely, or, listen here, they would have had to pay much higher premiums than somebody without those pre-existing conditions. So essentially, Obamacare enabled people based on their condition, their health condition. It had nothing to do with people of a certain income level. Okay, so nowadays, I think that, I think eventually it will collapse if it isn't reformed. Now, what did President Trump do that the Democrats are leaving out, that the Baltimore Sun didn't mention? It's that in this bill, I'll get right back to you, Gabriel. That's a good question. I don't have the answer yet. The issue with that is, where was I? I gotta minimize this chat. Okay, so what they forgot to mention, I remembered, is that in point of fact, what Congress is doing now, if they repeal the individual mandate, it actually changes only one thing. Okay, right now Donald Trump has signed an executive order saying that the individual mandate will not be enforced. Okay, now think about that. As of right now, as long as President Trump is in office and he maintains that executive order, the individual mandate is not enforced, meaning that you as an individual will not have to buy health insurance next year if you choose not to, which I think you probably should. I mean, just for your own good. But the government will not enforce this law and levy a punitive tax on you if you don't purchase Obamacare. So in reality, another deception of this article is where it says that repealing the individual mandate will destroy Obamacare and people will, 13 million people will lose their health insurance. Hold on a second. The individual mandate is not in effect at the moment. Do you understand? Because it's not going to be enforced next year. So far, provided that President Trump remains in office, provided that the executive order remains in place, it will not be enforced. So essentially, there's already proof that, and I'm about to get to that proof, that this quote unquote sabotage did not ruin Obamacare, and it won't. It's not going to be President Trump that brings Obamacare down. What will bring Obamacare down will be Obamacare itself, will be the structure of the bill. In fact, if anything, what he's doing is basically a soft evolution of the bill of this model, so that eventually it will dissolve, and then people will basically be able to buy health insurance as they used to. Let me take a look at that question. It says, in the UK, they take 6% of your gross earnings to pay for their national health service. Do you think this could happen in the States? Well, that's exactly what happens in the UK and in Canada, and by the way, in Mexico. So people that think, I don't know if it'll be 6%. It could be 12% based on. Remember, Americans are a lot fatter and dumber and unhealthier than people in Canada, because we sit around our houses and don't do shit. So people that think that imposing a universal healthcare system will automatically be affordable because you're not going to be paying for first of all, they assume that this isn't what I was trying to get into today. So I'm going to give you as short an answer as possible. What people who advocate for universal healthcare say is that instead of paying for foreign wars, we'll put all of our money into healthcare and free education. What they don't mention is that they're going to continue to allow illegal immigration, which is the keystone for allowing your health system to fall apart. So that's all I'm going to say for now. Maybe at a different point we can do a longer chat about why I think that universal health care will be also a disaster for the United States of America. But for here, he says it is not optional either. Do you live in the UK, by the way? Just checking to see his answer. If you can hear me in the chat, just let me know if you live in the UK, Gabriel. I'm going to come back to you. So it says, helpless, raging Charlottesville family shocked by these 2018 Obamacare premiums. It's horrific. So let's go to this article by Zero Hedge. And for those of you that don't know Zero Hedge, they're a pretty useful blog for monitoring. And it's this guy, Tyler Durden, who it's obviously a pseudonym, but they're actually pretty accurate on many market issues, on a lot of economic news. So it says, over the past several months, Democrats have jumped on every opportunity possible to blame the Trump administration for yet another year of staggering Obamacare premium increases. Ironically, despite arguments from the left that Trump's defunding of Obamacare's marketing budget would cause 2018 signups to plunge, as Politico recently noted, they're actually up in 2018, which begs the question, was the Obama administration just wasting $100 million in taxpayer money for nothing? Shocking thought, we know. Meanwhile, a fresh barrage of outcries from Democrats, most notably Ms. Nancy Pelosi, came after Trump's decision to cut federal subsidies, an action which the CBO insisted could result in devastating premium increases of up to 20%. Of course, if Trump is responsible for 20% of Obamacare's premium hikes in 2018, then perhaps Nancy Pelosi should explain to the Dixon family in Charlottesville, Virginia, precisely who is responsible for the other proportion of the 235% premium hike they just received. As the Washington Post points out this morning, the Dixons, a family of four in Virginia, were shocked earlier this month to find that their Obamacare premiums were going to surge from roughly $900 per month in 2017 to over $3,000 per month in 2018. Ian Dixon, who left his full-time job in 2016 to pursue an app development business, did so because the ACA guaranteed that he could still have quality coverage for his young family, he said. But when the 38-year-old Charlottesville husband and father of three and a 1-year-old, went to re-enroll this month, his only choice for coverage would cost him more than $3,000 a month for his family of four, which amounted to an increase of more than 300% over the $900 he paid the year before. And this is for the second cheapest option with a deductible of $9,200. Helpless is definitely a good word for it, Dixon said. Rage is also a good word for it. Of course, Democrats and the MSM also applauded Obamacare's great success earlier this year, when several counties that were previously feared to be left with no coverage options in 2018 suddenly picked up a carrier. That said, perhaps Bloomberg, Reuters, NBC, etc. should reconsider just how meaningful these Obamacare monopolies are if the premiums charged are so high that no one can afford them anyway. Let me just see how much is left here. Earlier this year, Aetna and Anthem pulled out of the Albemarle market. That's the county where Charlottesville is, citing too much unpredictability and risk. A smaller carrier, Optima, came in to fill the void. Consumers in the area went from having 19 plans offered in the options from Aetna and Anthem to only 5 coverage options with Optima. Several factors led to Optima's offering such high-priced plans, said Michael Dudley, the president of Optima. First, okay, this is important. He explains exactly what's going on here. Okay, for those of you, everybody here has a little common sense, I'm assuming, right? So he says, first, small communities like Charlottesville tend to be pricier to cover because there is a small patient pool to balance out the risks. Okay, so if there's less people available to actually buy the plans, okay, I'm just highlighting it. This cursor is acting like a little bitch right now. Here we go. A smaller pool means that there's less people in order to balance out the risks. That's how insurance works. You need more subscribers in order to give more payouts. Okay, otherwise the few subscribers that remain have to pay more. That's the way it works. So Optima took a cue from the carriers who had already ditched the market when actuaries predicted it was a place where the insurance companies might be paying out more to cover claims than it receives in premiums. It is also a more expensive coverage area because the primary provider is University of Virginia Health System, an academic medical center that charges higher rates for its care than a community hospital. Optima will include UVA Health System in network, unlike many carriers who have dropped the big medical centers as a cost-saving measure. Perhaps local business owner Sean Cosette can provide the Obamacare cheerleaders within the media some helpful insights. So it says here, among them was Sean Marie Cosette, 55, who runs her own event and floral design business in Charlottesville last year. Last year, she purchased an Anthem Silver plan for $550 a month for herself. This year, under Optima, a silver plan would cost her $1,859 monthly. It's a huge percentage of my income, she said. I really believed in the ACA. I really feel everyone deserves the right to health insurance, but who can afford those prices if you don't qualify for the subsidy? So excellent point at the end, too. Notice, if you aren't within a certain lower income bracket, fuck you, because the subsidies don't get extended to you, okay? So then you have to pay the full fucking price, in her case, $1,859 a month, in order to receive higher deductible health insurance, okay? So you get fucked both ways. You get the high premium and the high deductible, right? I'm sure that, what do I have here? Gabriel says, yes, he's from, why'd you retract your message, man? What are you, a little gun shy there? So he says that's an unbelievable increase. Well, that's the way it's been with Obamacare, and unfortunately, it's going to keep getting worse. The less competition there is between companies offering plans, and the less there are people that are willing to buy into the system, of course, it's going to go up. That's how insurance works. I mean, our people, it took me probably 20, after I finally realized I have to read up on what's going on here, it took me 20 minutes, and I realized this whole thing's built on fucking lies. It's complete nonsense. Okay, so that's it for Obamacare today. Oh, okay. Gofi Sufeb. What type of name is that, man? Gofi Sufeb. It's a weird name. I have a few theories about what that name means, but I'm not going to engage right now. So, what are the other issues here today? I got my friend, everybody, Carlos Cordova. Usually he joins me on the air, and it says, what is the difference between pre-ACA health insurance increase year over year versus post-ACA? Well, if I can find it, I did a video on it probably in April, where, damn it, I have to, can you wait 2 minutes? I'll look for it. Okay, everybody, I'm turning the camera off because I have to look for it. Okay, don't leave. Don't leave. I had that information. So That's a very good question from our great friend Carlos Cordova, who is a progressive. Which, I have my disagreements with progressives, but I hope progressives start to understand that if you support Obamacare, you're actually supporting corporate welfare. So I got to concentrate here, so I'm going to shut up for a second. Use this opportunity, stay on the stream, but maybe, take this opportunity to take a trip to the restroom or to, light up a joint if you're in Colorado or Oregon, or possibly if you're in Miami to, if you have like maybe a little habit where some powder, you can go over to the urinal and cut up some lines or something, because this healthcare must be a little stressful, this discussion today. So this will take a little time. Okay, I'm sorry guys, but I do have to find this. I'm just gonna have to search in the bar. I haven't been able to find it. I think it was in the Washington Post. Yeah, I'll have to go back and look, but yeah, I'll leave the link after the video. I'll try to look back. It's in one of my other videos. I think it was before I started the ACA Today series. But effectively, what it was a Washington Post article. I'm gonna keep looking because otherwise it's gonna drive me nuts. But essentially, Let me see if I can just search based on Obamacare. Essentially, what it was that they claimed that Obamacare rates were about the same or less than what it would have been if there had been no Obamacare. Well, okay, what they're basically saying is that Obamacare did not reach the level of effect that it needed. It was supposed to reduce premium prices anyway. Okay, so it wasn't supposed to go up at all, according to the people who sold the plan. So it's already a failure if it goes up even 1%, right? If you're saying that the costs are supposed to go down, if you even have a slight increase, then it's already a lie. But see here. That's not the only problem. Okay? The other problem with this is, let me see, maybe I found it here. No. I think I did found. I had this video called Obamacare's Ho Chi Minh Trail. This was at a time. It used to be last spring that I was talking about Obamacare all the time. That was probably, here I have. I'm sorry if I'm going down this alley, but this was, I really got, this is something that I kind of nerd out on. No, that one's too early. No, this is gonna have to wait. So basically, I'll post the article later. It is from the Washington Post, I believe. I forgot who it was, by some reporter. I think it was Jennifer something. It wasn't Jennifer Rubin, who's another idiot that works for the Washington Post, who's a neocon idiot, moron. She was on the O'Reilly show one time. But essentially, they claimed that Obamacare, they said, well, the premiums are still slightly less of an increase than it would have been pre-ACA. Well, what does that mean? It means you're investing billions of dollars of infrastructure, subsidies, and advertising in order to sell healthcare that's barely more affordable than if it didn't exist at all. The only added benefit is that some people who have pre-existing conditions can get healthcare plans if they want to. That's the only added benefit. Okay. So with your permission, I'm going to move to the next topic. Catherine Horace, absolutely correct. Well, the minimum, it always raises at an inflation rate. Usually it is higher than that anyway. Well, we're not talking, I mean, this would be some crazy inflation, dude. It is. I can show you some other videos where, for example, in Arizona, it increased by 96% in 1 year for some counties. And the point is that Obamacare was supposed to extend coverage for all Americans. If there are counties where there are dead zones, essentially where there are no plans, it's already a failure. That's another thing that people don't explain, that there still are counties in the United States, especially in Tennessee, Arizona, Colorado, Arkansas, Missouri. I think in Ohio we have a few where Obamacare isn't available at all because there are no carriers. Nobody's going to do it. Nobody's going to carry Obamacare because those companies, they don't have enough of a pool of people to carry it at all. So it's already a failure in that respect. It's been a failure in every respect since it got introduced. The state managed exchanges have collapsed, and that's about it. I'm going to move to the next topic because I do want to catch some of the Cowboys game when I'm going to drive over to my dad's house and watch his TV while he's eating dinner. That's how we roll on Thanksgiving. So the next topic, I know Carlos is probably pretty psyched at this. maybe not so much, but who knows, is Kathleen Sebelius, who was speaking of Obamacare, she was the Secretary of Health and Human Services under President Barack Obama. She came out with the knives yesterday. She came out with Night of the Long Knives. She said, wait a minute, let me just zoom out a little. Sebelius, the Clinton White House doubled down on abusive behavior, and it's fair to criticize Hillary Clinton. So she's saying, as a wave of stories unfold about sexual harassment and assault by men in power, a senior Democratic leader says her party should reflect on how it handled such charges when they were leveled against former President Bill Clinton. I'll just show it to you. Not only did people look the other way, but they went after the women who came forward and accused them, says Kathleen Sebelius, the former Secretary of Health and Human Services and Kansas governor. And so it doubled down on not only bad behavior, but abusive behavior. And then people attacked the victims. Sebelius extended her criticism to Hillary Clinton and the Clinton White House for what she called a strategy of dismissing and besmirching the women who stepped forward, a pattern she said is being repeated today by alleged perpetrators of sexual assault, saying that the criticism of the former First Lady and Secretary of State was absolutely fair. Sebelius noted that the Clinton administration's response was being imitated, adding that you can watch that same pattern repeat. It needs to end. It needs to be over. The comments came during a conversation with David Axelrod on the latest episode of The Axe Files, a podcast produced by the University of Chicago Institute of Politics and CNN. While Sebelius was critical of both Clintons, she questioned whether the impeachment pursued by Republicans in Congress was the appropriate vehicle for addressing his transgressions. Well, what were they supposed to do? Like wrap it up in a bottle and float it out to sea, and God would remove Clinton from office? Sebelius also refused to take a position on whether Senator Al Franken, a Democrat, should step down in response to allegations of groping. She drew a distinction between Franken's reaction and those of Alabama Senate candidate Roy Moore, movie mogul Harvey Weinstein, and several others who have denied accusations of sexual assault and sexual harassment. She says, Franken has done something different than some of the other males involved, she said. He first of all admitted behavior and apologized, but immediately called for an ethics investigation on himself. The others, she said, have followed a very difficult path, and it's a path that looks a lot more like what Bill Clinton did. Sebelius acknowledged that the Senate Ethics Committee has a checkered history of policing such charges, but suggested that the intense focus on this issue will make it more difficult for the panel to ignore the behavior Franken had acknowledged or to bury its review in secrecy. I don't think you can do that, and I think that Franken is likely to do some real soul-searching in the meantime. Recalling her own experiences in and around Kansas government for decades ago, Sebelius, a former lobbyist and legislator, said she was saddened that the abusive behavior toward women she saw then is still pervasive today. It breaks my heart to know that here we are 40 years later, and very much the same atmosphere prevails, she said, and it's about power. It's never been about sex. It's all about power. And men who have power over women use that power in all kinds of ways. Sebelius, this is terribly written, by the way. It's actually from CNN, and it just shows that their quality control has just gone to shit. Sebelius said that while she had certainly my share of a variety of horrific situations, bosses, and people that she was protected, and that I didn't ever desperately need this job. I could walk out at any minute. I could walk away at any minute. Calling for more attention on women who weren't in her comparatively privileged position, Sebelius said there are so many women who can't do that, who need to feed their families, who need to be quiet because they are desperate for the work that they have, and that needs to be blown up. She also called on men. Okay, never mind. This is a bullshit article. And the only reason that I'm bringing this article up is very, very simple. I think somebody just sent me a shit message. On Facebook. Okay. Yeah, that's unrelated. Sorry about that. Um, so there's the issue with Kathleen Sebelius is that, first of all, she says that she was harassed during her career, but she doesn't go out and say by who. So that's not exactly like she grew a pair of ovaries or something. She's basically saying, well, in my day we had the same problem, and I'm sad that it happened to other people, but I'm not really going to do anything about it. I'm just going to condemn people that it's already well known about. Then she comes out and says, well, Roy Moore and Al Franken and Bill Clinton and Harvey Weinstein, they're different situations. And she says, well, at least Al Franken took responsibility for what he did. Well, she forgets to mention, and I think I don't know what Kathleen Sebelius did before she got into politics. Let me see here. Kathleen Sebelius. I think she was just a, well, it says she was a lobbyist. And she was a master's in public administration. So she's been groomed to be a bureaucrat and a lobbyist. So, okay, I'm not a lawyer either. I don't think any of you guys are lawyers. If you are, please answer in the chat. Please tell me your opinion. But there's a huge difference in the Moore case and the Al Franken case. With Roy Moore, there's no photographic evidence, there's no video evidence. The only evidence, so to speak, is the accounts of a number of women who have claimed that he behaved inappropriately towards them. In some cases, it was only flirting, okay? Which, who's to say what's inappropriate or not? I don't even know anymore. But there is one case where there's an accusation that he groped a minor. Okay, fine. But it's not proof. It's not definitive proof. So if you're relying on the account of one person from 1977 against a judge that's been on the bench for decades and has been removed from the bench twice for things that are entirely unrelated to sexual assault charges, then I'm sorry. I think you need more proof than that. And I think there's a rush to judgment there. Okay, with Al Franken, there was photographic evidence. The other issue here is that what we're seeing is a very simple and very, very, it's a very subtle change. Okay, what happened? Why is Kathleen Sebelius lashing out at the Clintons? Okay, let me see in the comments. Maybe somebody guessed it. Gabriel says hyperinflation for something else. He says, "What's your opinion on kneeling for the flag?" Let's do that on a different day, okay? Gurky says, "Great stuff. We are slipping out to Thanksgiving dinner. We'll catch the rest online later. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody." Well, thank you. The Democrats have This is Catherine. She says the Democrats have become the party of lying child rapists with diseased antisocial psychology hell-bent on destroying America. I was a loyal Democrat for 36 years, but no more. Well, there's a lot of people like you. You know, I guess technically at a time I considered myself a Democrat. He says the same is happening here in the UK, but with the Labour Party. The way Hillary enabled Bill the rapist, she has no right to even talk about this subject. Gabriel, I want one day, maybe we can have a chat. Maybe you can come on. I'm trying to get some UK people, talk about UK politics too. I'm a huge supporter of the Brexit. If you disagree with the Brexit, I want to talk to you. If you agree with the Brexit, I want to talk to you. But yeah, I think there's a couple parallels with the Labour Party. It's not exactly the same, but there are parallels to it. What is happening with Kathleen Sebelius, if you have not guessed, is that this is the Obama Democrats stabbing the Hillary Democrats in the back after years of pretending that you could be both. And the reason you can't be both is very simple. Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton hate the fuck out of each other. They hate each other. And Bill Clinton hates Barack Obama too. And Barack Obama hates Bill Clinton. And what they did for 8 years was they papered over that bullshit. They papered over their relationship and said, well, we're going to make a working relationship. I'm going to be his Secretary of State, and she's going to be my Secretary of State. I'm going to be her president, and we'll see if we can work it out. Well, how did it work out? Did Hillary Clinton make any achievements as Secretary of State for Barack Obama? Absolutely not. Now, I'm gonna go to Kathleen Sebelius first. Why is it that she's coming out and this is stuff I'm freestyling now. So for those of you that are wondering, do I do all the research beforehand? No, I don't. Some of it I do it while I'm actually talking to you. So what you may not know is that Kathleen Sebelius, before she was the governor of Kansas and before she was the Secretary of Health and Human Services, so she was governor of Kansas from 2003 to 2009. She was Secretary of Health and Human Services from 2009 to 2014. Now, before she was any of that, she was the Insurance Commissioner of Kansas, and apparently she was in the House of Representatives from 1987 to 1995. Okay, so this is a woman. She came to the forefront under, between the Clinton and Obama years. Okay, she became the governor of Kansas, and she owes most of her career to Obama. Unlike some of these other trolls, like John Podesta, who was a Clinton chief of staff. Well, Obama basically inherited John Podesta. He probably didn't want John Podesta in his administration. It's well known that the Clintons or the Obamas didn't trust Clinton aides. That's why they didn't like John Podesta. They probably didn't like Rahm Emanuel, who was also a Clinton henchman for a while. And for 8 years, it was basically the Obamas playing nice with the Clintons so that they wouldn't undermine Obama's authority. In fact, I can point you to some articles. Obama replaced 2012. There were rumors in 2012 about Clinton replacing Obama. So, or replacing Joe Biden. And it never happened. But such things have happened in the past. It's not always true that a president will go 8 years with the same vice president. I think it was FDR. He had 3 vice presidents. He had Barkley, he had John Garner, and he had Harry Wallace, who was a borderline communist, and then he had Harry Truman. So I think it was 4 in total. And then it happened to be that he died when Truman was president. If he would have died when Harry Wallace was president, it's possible that you and I would probably be talking to each other in a breadline now instead of, on the World Wide Web, because Harry Wallace was pretty close to being a communist. Now, what is Obama's camp doing? They have lost the use for Hillary and Bill Clinton now. They don't need them anymore. What was the use for the administration for the alliance between the Clintons and the Obamas? Well, Obama needed the Clinton supporters in order to get elected in 2008. He had a very good young sector of the public that was new voters that were coming in 2008. That's very good. But he still needed Clinton voters, which were the more mature and some of the more feminist voters, to come out for him in 2008. So he needed them. Why did he have Hillary Clinton as his Secretary of State? Well, to be honest with you, I think that's a mystery in some respects. But what I believe was his intention was that Hillary Clinton, being somebody who's on the world stage, would be able to do as little damage as possible for him, because she wouldn't be, for example, the worst case scenario for him would have been if she was the vice president. Then he would have constantly been afraid that somebody was going to poison his water or something, or throw like a hair dryer into the bathtub while he was taking a bath, so that he would die and she would become president. So he made her Secretary of State. So if anything bad would happen, it would be Clinton's fault. And if anything good would happen, it would be Obama. Obama would get any credit for any peace that he would bring. Clinton would get virtually nothing. I mean, he was willing to, like, if something good would have happened, let's say he would have gotten peace in the Middle East. Let's say he would have gotten the troops out of Iraq, which he did. Let's say he would have gotten the troops out of Afghanistan. If he would have done all those things, Obama would have gotten the majority of the credit. And Hillary Clinton potentially could get some of the credit in order to contribute towards a future presidential run. But Obama didn't care at that point. The other reason that he needed the Clintons during that era was because if you don't remember, in 2011 and 2012, after the 2010 midterms, Obama lost control of the House, meaning that the government was in gridlock. So he needed Bill Clinton in order to pitch to the American public some of his compromises with the Republicans, because Clinton had had experience in 1994 through 1996 compromising with the Republican House and Senate. So for Obama, who was on a much more radical side of the Democratic Party, it paid for him to at least get some of the Clinton credit for moderate Americans in the center. Remember, Obama had to struggle for a long time to gain the trust of moderate Democratic voters who thought that he was a radical, or they believed some of the rumors about him, which, some of the rumors were untrue. Some of the rumors are, to be decided. Let's put it that way. If you like that Alex Jones cucumber video, if you don't think it's true, doesn't matter. It's still a funny video. Don't knock it till you try it. So let me see if there's anything in the chat real quick. Geez, you guys are typing up a storm here. Gabriel says, I did vote to leave the corrupt EU. Thank you for, on behalf of the world, thank you. It says the Rothschilds are throwing the Clintons under the bus with the deluded belief that they can escape the fires of justice. Well, I think that, yeah, she does have ties to international, neoliberals. And it's not just, I don't dispute, I think a lot of the stuff they say about the Rothschilds is very simplistic, but they do have a role. They do have a role in a lot of the problems that are going on. And I'm a person, I don't like to blame one person for everything, even the Clintons that I've hated. But yeah, the Rothschilds, they've had people associated with them that absolutely they've bankrolled the Clintons. They've bankrolled the president of France, Macron, and I think it's justifiable that people are not happy with what we've gotten. It doesn't mean that we should demonize whole sectors of people, but yes, they are not immune to criticism. BritX, too little, too late. Merkel, with her insane open border policies, have destroyed Europe, in my opinion. Yep. Hillary Clinton has had to apologize for every significant official act in every office she's held, both elected and appointed. The woman is pond scum. I share that sentiment entirely. Gabriel again, President Trump being a nationalist, unlike Hillary being a globalist, is putting America first, which is also helping the BritX campaign. Well, I want to say I would support Brexit whether Trump did or not. I think it's for me, I don't care. I just got into an argument with some Brexit people that they got a little, I'm Jewish. They started saying, well, they started posting memes that were, obviously anti-Jewish. And I said, well, I have never opposed British sovereignty. And for you to go and do this and come back to me, well, I'm not going to change my opinion on British sovereignty, but you guys can go fuck yourselves. That's what I said to them. Okay, you guys, I do this not because I like you guys personally. I do this because I believe in a free and independent Britain. And it doesn't matter who's there. It doesn't matter what their opinion is. But, I'm not going to, associate with a bunch of people that think I'm dog shit. Doesn't matter who. And then another thing Gabriel says, Michelle is really a Michael, come on. Well, the video is, it is a funny video. And, I'd like to see more proof, but Carlos also says, I guess if Joan Rivers says it, it must be true. Catherine says, like, Michelle would have tossed the hairdryer into the tub for her master. She also says, Europe is why I've learned to love the Second Amendment. Yep. Britain was conned into joining the EU using the common market as a stepping stone. Yes, absolutely. And I think that for anybody living in America who thinks that the European Union is a model for a new society where people will, where there will be harmony between the peoples, It's the biggest lie ever. You can look at any of my Catalonia videos, and those are progressive people, and they know that it's wrong. Mark Anthony, the Hillary cough persists. Onward and upward. Onward. Well, what is it? Onward together. Absolutely. Thanks for joining me, Mark. So what was I getting to with the Hillary Clinton backstabbing by Kathleen Sebelius? Well, this is a woman. She doesn't owe anything to the Clintons, so she's able to go and plunge that knife in. You're not going to see other people within the Clinton administration do simple. Sorry, within the Obama administration, do similar things. I would say Eric Holder. You're not going to hear him do that. Why? Because Eric Holder had a low-ranking position in the Clinton administration. You're not going to see, who's another person? Jeez. Leon Panetta, who was Clinton's chief of staff. He's not going to do it. Leon Panetta was chief of staff under Clinton. He ended up being defense secretary under Obama. Okay, so what I'm trying to explain here is that President Obama, I believe, did not have a full presidency. In many cases, he had to inherit a lot of these gargoyles. Why do I use the term gargoyles? These are people that they look like stone during the day, and at night they come to life and they fuck with everything in your house. Obama gargoyles, like Axelrod was an exception. He was a Clinton person who defected and became a full Obama supporter. But there's Emanuel and the Rahm Emanuel, current mayor of Chicago, piece of shit loser. Fucked the city over completely. I've never been to Chicago. I'm a Cubbies fan, but he's completely destroyed the city. So you have Emanuel, you have Podesta, you have Panetta, you have, let's see who else in his cabinet. You have Clinton herself was a Secretary of State. You have John Kerry, I guess would technically have been an independent. The EU will fail as they have taken away sovereign states' powers and given it to the unelected bureaucrats running the EU. Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping it fails, and I think it will fail next year when Italy leaves. I hope. I'm minimizing the window now, so if you're in the chat, give me a few minutes. I'll respond. I think I'm going to close up in 15 minutes. So what else do I have left here? To get rid of some of these windows. So essentially, what's going on here? Well, Sticks already made a video today about the Clintons and the Obamas turning on each other. Clinton and there's books out there. So, you know, a lot of the stuff I say, I'm not just talking on my ass. There's people in literature, or you know, in Clinton literature that have already written about it. There's over here. This is called Blood Feud by Ed Klein. Ed Klein has a lot of sources that are off the record, confidential people, and therefore you kind of have to take his books with a bit of a grain of salt. But since his books, you know, I've read 2 or 3 of his books. Most of his predictions have come true, meaning that a lot of the people that he has contact with that are close to the Clintons and the Obamas, they have a very good feel for where it's going and what's really going on in the ether. So essentially what happened was that Obama needed the Clintons because Bill Clinton was perceived as a successful president. He needed him in order to pitch his plan in 2011 to Democratic voters and Democratic Congress people who they looked at Clinton as more of a competent hand than Obama. And it worked because Clinton went out. He went to bat for Obama, Bill Clinton, and Obama got reelected in 2012. And in exchange for that, Obama ended up essentially publicly supporting Clinton's run for president. In the background, though, there's plenty of evidence that even though Obama himself may have, on the surface, supported the Clinton presidency, according to this book and a number of others, he directed people to sabotage her. One of the people, or possibly it wasn't Obama himself. One of the people that keeps coming up is Valerie Jarrett, who was Obama's personal Karl Rove. She was his top aide. You know, nobody was ever closer to President Obama than Valerie Jarrett. In Blood Feud, there's plenty of instances where it shows that Jarrett hated Hillary Clinton, that she would have sabotaged any sort of chance of Hillary Clinton succeeding in becoming president. So those of you that might be out there, and I've written a whole article, you can see it, it's in the description, a whole response to a friend of mine, a local friend of mine, who believes the Trump-Russia conspiracy. There might actually be an Obama CIA or Obama White House connection that torpedoed Clinton's election. There may have been many leaks due to Valerie Jarrett that may have torpedoed Clinton's ascension to the presidency, because Valerie Jarrett hated Hillary Clinton, just so you know. And now that there was this defeat and that there's all this sexual assault stuff that's going around, okay, these Obama people, these loyal people that have they didn't want anything to do with Clinton to begin with. They never trusted her. They never trusted Bill. They never trusted Huma Abedin. They never trusted Rahm Emanuel or John Podesta, depending on whether you view them as Obama or Clinton supporters. They never trusted any of those people. Now they're saying it's time for us to purge the Clinton people from the Democratic Party, and from now on, the Democratic Party will be identified with Obama, because Obama, as he was in the White House, he believed for years that Clinton was overshadowing him. He was living in the shadow of Bill Clinton's balls. Okay, that was his entire term. He, in terms of, okay, there's a real distinction here in terms of personal character. In terms of personal character, a lot of people in the liberal community, they love Barack Obama. They love him. In terms of personal conduct, they despise Bill Clinton. Okay, because Bill Clinton was a sexual harasser. Bill Clinton had sex with his intern. Some of them are conscious of Bill Clinton's affairs. You know, Michelle Obama herself said, if you can't run your house, you can't run the White House, when she was talking about Hillary Clinton in 2008. So plenty of people from the Obama era, from the Obama administration and from the Obama campaign and etc., they never trusted the Clintons. They hated them. And a lot of the Obama voters never trusted the Clintons either. On the flip side, you had a lot of people who were Clinton supporters who thought Obama was an incompetent moron. And that, you know, there's allegations that they had racial problem. They didn't, you know, that there's racism in the Democratic Party, that they look down on this new black leader or whatever. And you know, there's evidence of that too. It's in Game Change by Mark Halperin and John Heilemann. That's also up there. So I'm not going to advertise it because Mark Halperin's fallen to the sexual assault witch hunt and whatever, and it looks like it's true because I think he's admitted it. But anyway, still a pretty good book, you know. So if you want to support a sexual harasser, then I guess pick up Game Change by Mark Halperin, if that's your thing. You know, no guilt Thanksgiving. I guess if you buy it on Thanksgiving, you don't have to feel the guilt of supporting a sexual harasser. But anyway, so they viewed Obama as incompetent because he didn't accomplish anything domestically, or for that matter, foreign policy wise, when he was president. President Clinton had many accomplishments. You can hate him all you want. You know, personally, I don't think, I'd probably, on a personal level, Bill Clinton reminds me of a few of my friends. So, you know, what does that say about me? I mean, I guess it doesn't reflect well on me. But you can't argue with the fact that Bill Clinton, he had a lot of success dealing with a Republican Congress, getting a lot of his initiatives passed, getting a lot of his progressive social agenda passed. A lot of it was kind of bullshit that progressives justifiably are angry with. He did get the Oslo Accords, which was part of his plank as a president. You know, whether that was an accomplishment or not, 30 years later, that's not the issue. The issue is that he successfully got it. The Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland, he did that. There was the Dayton Agreement in Bosnia between the Serbs and the Serbs and the Bosnians and the Croats. So he brought to end some of those Yugoslav wars. So he did have some accomplishments, and we shouldn't take away from him, as much as we dislike Bill Clinton. We shouldn't take away from him the fact that he was successful in many of his endeavors as president, despite the fact that he probably wasn't the best person in real life. You have to analyze him honestly. But when you analyze Obama policy-wise, he was a disaster. He was a disaster in terms. Now, people say yes, the economy grew under him. That's that's a subjective definition, because his growth rate was very low compared to Bill Clinton, and compared to Ronald Reagan and some of the other presidents during or you know. But Barack Obama's economic platform was a failure, and in fact, most of the growth occurred in urban areas on the coasts, not in the heartland or in the Midwest or even in the inner city. A lot of Obama's core constituents and his biggest loyalists, the black community, other minority communities, they benefited not by one smidgen from the Obama administration. There wasn't a smidgen of benefit, to paraphrase Obama himself, talking about, I think he was talking about the IRS tax controversy. He said there's not a smidgen of corruption. So there wasn't a smidgen of benefit for the inner city from the Obama presidency. So essentially, and we're going to close in 2 minutes, 5 minutes. You know, it's going to be hard for me to close in 2, but this is the end of the Democratic Party as we know it. The Obamas and the Clintons, they're going to have at it. I believe that the Clinton star has finally tanked. People are not going to want to vote for Hillary Clinton anymore. There could be a political future for a number of people in the Obama orbit. There is Michelle Obama. There's Valerie Jarrett. There is the former governor of Massachusetts, Devil Patrick. There is Joe Biden. Okay, now he's going to have a rough time given another Paul Joseph Watson video that came out. But there's a number of Obama trolls that are going to lie around. I mean, Eric Holder, who knows, he could run for office. It's going to be interesting. And what's happening is that we're seeing the Democratic Party become the party of nobility. I think I put that in the subject line. And I'm going to show you, I think I put that in the description too. The article here, City Pages, it's in Minneapolis. So bear with me for just a second. It says, at least 3 prominent Democrats will be running for the North Minneapolis City Council seat in 2017. So you scroll down, it's a bunch of nobodies, and then it says, the second is Jeremiah Bay Ellison, son of DFL, the U.S. Representative Keith Ellison. So DFL, for those of you who don't know, is the Democratic Farm Labor Party, which is the name of the Democrats in Minnesota, because it was a merger of 2 parties. When Jeremiah approached the microphone to speak the night of its budget vote, the young man turned his back to the members and instead addressed his words to the audience. And if you thought that was provocative, get a load of what he said. I know a lot of people on the council. I've met a lot of people on the council, but one thing I've learned is, as nice as a handshake is, someone will shake your hand, kiss your baby, and slit your throat at the same time. Ellison had already become a noted activist following the police shooting death of Clark. I think his name says at the beginning, Jamar Clark, an unarmed 24-year-old black man killed in North Minneapolis. A Star Tribune photo taken during a nighttime clash between police and protesters depicted Ellison, hands raised, while a cop aimed a non-lethal weapon at him and other protesters. Ellison is an artist and organizer and writes on his own campaign biography page that he painted his first mural at age 8 on the corner of Plymouth and DuPont. Ellison cites workers' rights, environmental issues, and food access as priorities he wants to address. On violence and policing, he writes, We need to address the root causes of youth violence. We need to tip the scales of power between the publicly funded, uniformly trained police force and the racially and economically diverse collective of individuals that make up a neighborhood. Jeremiah is just the latest Ellison trying to break into politics and policy game. His dad is in line to become the next head of the Democratic National Committee, and his mother, Keith Ellison's ex-wife, Kim, is an at-large member of the Minneapolis School Board. So Keith Ellison, for those of you that don't know, I'm not going to, I think he does have some views that I think are, they're against me. So, but, I say, if that's what he thinks, he can run on it. That's fine. I think he's a phony though. He's somebody, he pretended to be a progressive during the 2016 election. Now he's part of the DNC. He's part of the DNC, and his son is now on the Minneapolis City Council. This page was, I think, last year, and he's since been elected to Minneapolis City Council. So Keith Ellison, the deputy chair of the Democratic Party and a member of Congress, who could become, by the way, if Al Franken resigns, it's possible that Keith Ellison will be nominated to be senator from Minnesota. And imagine that. Imagine we will have our first Muslim senator. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that on paper. Those of you that have an objection, I think there's reasons to object, and there's reasons to say, calm down a little. But Ellison is a fake. He's somebody who's lied in the past about his beliefs in the 90s and 2000s. Whether he's changed his mind is irrelevant. He lied about what he was, what he was standing for at the time. He claimed he didn't know anything about Louis Farrakhan's real views, which is pretty ridiculous if you think about it. And Keith Ellison, for his son to now be in government, it reminds me, Jesse Jackson's son, Jesse Jr., also became a politician and a congressman, and he became corrupt. So I guess I'll have to wish luck to the young Ellison. Maybe he can do a better job than Jesse Jackson Jr. And maybe he can bring some good change to Minneapolis. But my feeling is, if you're already in politics and you have children, please, encourage them to pick a different career. We don't need people that have pedigrees coming in and saying, well, I'm going to stand for this state, Massachusetts, the way my dad, Bobby Kennedy did. That's not the way that I think our country was meant to be managed. Now, in some cases, these people, they're justifiably qualified, but how many? I think on the Republican side, of course, there's the Bushes. That sucks. If the Trump kids, if Ivanka Trump runs for office, I'll be like, no, Ivanka Trump, keep selling fucking clothes. I don't need to hear you complaining all the time about family leave and all that stuff. That's not, there's somebody else who can do that, make that case much better than you can. And Jared Kushner, same thing. I don't need Jared Kushner or Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump. They're, reasonably smart guys, smart enough to know that it's better to be in the world of business than in the world of politics. I don't think that the Trump kids should run for office now. Do they have the right to? Yes, they do. It's their right as an American. But you see in the Democratic Party, and with this I'll leave you. Does anybody know who the governor of New York is? His name is Andrew Cuomo. And his dad was the governor, Mario Cuomo. And does anybody know who the governor of California is? His name is Jerry Brown. And his dad was Pat Brown, the governor of California. And you can go from state to state, as I already mentioned, Jesse Jackson, and there's plenty of other ones. We have just this Democratic Party that is rich with the Kennedys and the Browns and the Clintons and what was the other one? The Cuomos. And there's going to be more because these people, they depend on loyalty. They don't depend on results. They're all in it for themselves. It's for their name. It's for their brand. It's for their brand. And the DNC brand, the Democratic brand, stinks to high heaven now. So I urge you to become independent. Learn to think for yourself. Even if you're a Democrat, even if you're a progressive, even if you're a conservative, don't believe the Republicans either. The Bushes and the McCains and the McConnells They may not have the same degree of idiocy as the Democrats, but they do have the same degree of failure. So I want people, you come to my show, I try to give you an independent opinion. Maybe I am a little biased. I do hate the Democrats a little more. The Republicans are garbage too. And I think that for all of us, we can agree that this Thanksgiving, we can thank the Lord that he at least gave us the ability to discern between good and evil. Okay, so and based on what we think is good and evil. So one last look at the comments, before I head out. And can somebody post in the comments? Because otherwise I have to look at my phone. Can somebody post the score to the Cowboys-Chargers game? So we got. Well, Carlos is still here. So Gabriel says, Civil War is on the cards. Carlos says, Matt, I don't know whether he says it for me or not. Gabriel says, that's a bad smoker's cough you've got. Please take a cough drop. I should take a cough drop. I stopped smoking 3 years ago, by the way, so it's not because of tobacco, although that would make sense. The rapper 10,000, welcome back. Happy Thanksgiving, bold like a leopard. Happy Thanksgiving to you. I think that Obama was just a pawn for Hillary Clinton and her feminazis. Yeah, I think he realized at some point that he might be a pawn, and he didn't like it. And even if you're Barack Obama and you the Michelle video, which I think is, I want to know more about that. That's a little, I'm starting to entertain theories that the Alex Jones show is putting forward. It's not as trumped up as I thought it was. So he says I got that Hillary cough too. Yeah, it's from reading all her books. Her disease is just contagious. Gabriel says Hillary has blamed everyone and everything except herself for failing to win the presidency. Sad, really. Carlos says, I remember when Hillary. Carlos, by the way, we should have another chat this weekend, maybe on Sunday. I remember when Hillary wanted to put a sexual predator to head the economy. Sexual predator to head the economy. Who was that? You'll have to remind me. Gabriel says, I think Michael wore the pants, not Barack. That reminds me, I'll see if I can find that meme. I can't find it right now, but the meme basically says, it's like Obama calls up Putin and he's like, Vlad, I think it's time we had a man-to-man chat. And he said, you're right. Put Michelle on the line. And it's like, that I was like laughing so hard. Rapper 10,000 writes, Hillary scared those women who accused her husband Bill Clinton of rape. And then he counts another Hillary cough. And then Gabriel had a retracted message. Catherine says Obama was spineless. I don't think it's yet possible for a strong black man to be elected president because of the traitors in our government who are agitating for a race war. Well, Jesse Jackson ran for president. I think there were a couple personal issues that prevented him from. I don't like Jesse Jackson, but he had a good run twice. You had Herman Cain was torpedoed by sexual allegations that were never substantiated. He would have been a strong business leader. I think he would have been a pretty interesting president to have in terms of how our economy would have turned out. Another businessman, sort of in terms of his career choices, closer to the Trump than Obama line. So, I do hope one day we'll have other presidents of other backgrounds that do put forward good, but their ideas have to be good. It can't just be about their identity. Okay, their idea. There's people in on the progressive side that are progressive, that are minorities, that are pretty interesting. I wouldn't vote for them, but they at least have ideas. Okay, Obama I think originally he had some ideas, but they weren't that, he wasn't that adamant in carrying them out. The rapper 10,000 says Obama did more for gays than he did for blacks. I've heard a lot of people say that. And Obama was no alpha male. Gabriel says Obama and Michael were a gay couple. Have a great holiday, guys. Have a great holiday, Gabriel, too, from the UK. You're welcome here anytime. The rapper 10,000 says, get off the Democrats' plantation fields. And then he says, what? You're making a terrible mistake electing a Muslim. Well, I'm not saying people should vote for him. I'm just saying that he has the legal right to run for office. There's no, as much as you might think it's a problem, legally he has there's nothing that says you can't be a Muslim in the Senate or the House for that matter. I think Ellison would be a horrible representative for any community. He's a spineless twat who's sold out to the DNC and their agenda. And if you're a Muslim, I don't think that you should have him representing you either. The only Muslims I have a problem with are the Wahhabis, says Catherine. And then she says, he sucks, and so did his dad. I think she's talking about Ellison. Gabriel says, once in power, they will start demanding Sharia law like they have done in many countries throughout the world. Absolutely right. Gabriel says, Chris only has his job at CNN because of his brother. Yep. And we should never forget that. Rapper 10,000 says, no Sharia law. Mark Anthony says, LOL. Okay, I don't know what you guys were laughing at. I was totally, maintaining decorum this whole time. Catherine says they can run, but they can't win yet. And then she says identity politics has more to do with enslavement than freedom for anyone. And then she says Cuomo. Well, I'm glad you guys joined me on this Thanksgiving. Go home, have a great dinner with your family or with the TV, or pop in like a DVD or Xbox or something and simulate your Thanksgiving with some, I guess GTA or something, break into some liquor store and then have that Thanksgiving in a responsible way, committing crimes on the video screen. The Putin and Michelle joke, Ramon, that was pretty funny. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, yeah. You guys should look for that meme and send me that meme. I love that meme. It was great. Look, I do have to go. I want to catch some of this game. Nobody posted the score. I'm very disappointed in you guys. I have the highest standards for my chat. But happy Thanksgiving. Maybe we'll have a chat. Probably will be a chat tomorrow. Topic to be determined. I wanted to have a couple interviews over this weekend. I don't know if any of them are going to occur yet, but I can't tease them yet because I don't know who they'll be. So, that's it. It's bold like a leopard. It's ThanksGladio instead of Thanksgiving, because you can see the deep state still doing their bullshit, but we're not going to let them ruin our dinner. Have a good night.